Nikki Bond, thanks for doing it. Show business. That's the start.
That was the intro?
This is the intro.
Loud? Oh, okay.
No, the how loud is just to make sure.
Oh, okay, because that would have been a pretty good intro.
It would have been a great intro. And do you want to know how you came to be on this podcast?
Sure,
Can I share with you?
Yeah, okay.
Because I do audio for Josh's pod.
Oh.
And so I listened to your guys' app, and I was like, oh, what a great guest.
Oh, why, thank you.
Yeah, and Josh agreed. He's like, Nikki's an awesome guest. I love having Nikki on.
I do think that if podcasting was a job, like as a guest,
Yeah.
I would probably.
It should be a job.
It should
Maybe there
be.
should be a union for podcast appearances, and they can organize to get money to do podcasts.
Yes, and then you get paid to do the podcast. Yeah, because I think that that's where I shine the most is podcasts.
But you also have a podcast.
I also have a podcast, but it's different being a guest. I find when you host a podcast, you're like, yeah, I don't know, you don't get to tell as many stories as if someone's guiding you. Every podcast is different.
Yeah, like I'm here to make you look good.
Right. Yeah.
And then I kind of have my things, or I have some notes on Nikki in case it doesn't go well.
Whoa. Okay.
No, it'll always go well.
I also didn't know that you did audio sound for podcasts.
I just started doing it. Like someone asked me, and then another person asked me, and it's just kind of steamrolling because I used to be an audio guy for music.
Yeah.
And then I was like, someone asked me some questions. I'm like, I could just do it for you. And so I do Suba's pod, Josh's pod, and then a couple others that are kind of starting.
See, because my boyfriend is an audio guy.
That's right. We talked about this. Yeah.
And he always did my pod, and now he's on tour. So he had to teach me how to do it. But he's like, you should just pay someone. But everybody that I would try to go to are just people that produce podcasts. I was like, no, I want an engineer.
Yes.
I want you to know what you're doing. Like, you guys don't know you're not mixing it.
No, you're just like exporting it.
You're exporting it. You're cutting where I say cut. I don't want that.
No,
I want it
sonically.
Yes.
Well, look, you found your guy right here. Another Canadian
there you go.
touch your. Is that a thing? Touch the cheek.
No, but that's my thinking face.
I like this one, but this is good. It's like the corner of the mouth.
Yeah, I like that one too.
So you found another Canadian engineer.
There you go.
They're in your orbit. They follow you around.
Yeah, music people follow me around. Yeah.
Did you come to America with your Canadian engineer boyfriend?
Yes. Well, I came first. We were still together. And then I moved to New York without him. And then I moved to LA without him.
New York, I'm going by myself.
I was like,
LA, you can come.
Yeah. And then, because in New York, I moved to New York after we were together like 8 months. And I could never do long distance relationships because I have daddy issues and I know how to block people out very well.
Hence the pod?
Hence the pod.
Yeah.
And so every boyfriend I ever dated, we always broke up because it would be like a camp boyfriend. And I was like, well, I'm not going to see you that much. We're going to break up because I'm going to forget about you. Or like a high school boyfriend when I go to university. I was like, well, sorry, going to forget you. So I would just break up with people even though I still really like them. But I'd be like,
it's time to forget.
Yeah, it's time to forget. Like, I'm just going to have a wandering eye. So when I moved to New York, I didn't break up with him because I was like, I'm scared I'm going to lose you. And so he didn't move there, which I'm glad he didn't because then I moved here.
Perfect.
So then he came like a year and a half after. Or something.
I feel like it's a common Canadian journey to go to New York and then LA.
I think so too.
Like America and then actually let's do some sun.
I think if you're coming from the East Coast, right?
Yeah, well I came from the West Coast and I still did it that way, yeah.
You did,
I did, yeah.
Interesting. Why did you want to go to the East Coast?
I think LA, I came to here first and it's hard to break in. You're like it's a secret society. And this is before like iPhones and like you had to be 25 to rent a car. And so I couldn't rent a car and like just no Airbnb and all. So you're coming here kind of like lost. You're like, this isn't working. And then New York, you meet people, it's rolling. It's people are zipping and zapping and wanting to do stuff like right away. I just had momentum.
And here it's like you have to filter through the crazies. Like you think someone wants to be your friend and you're like, oh my God, I made a friend in LA. Like,
on the first day.
On the first day, we'll do all this stuff together. It's like, oh no, you've had a lot of friends and you don't have friends anymore. And you're just...
They're like the welcome foam of LA. Like they're just like on top of the coffee and you're like, no, that...
Yeah.
And then you try to get rid of that and then you start again.
100%. Yeah.
Have you made some good friends here?
I feel like a lot of Toronto friends have moved here. Like my best friend from grade 3 moved here. And
Grade 3, so specific.
I know. It's when we first became friends. And then I had made friends when I first moved here, and they weren't my vibe. They were like my friends when my boyfriend didn't live here. My Toronto people didn't live here yet, and they were from my acting class. And it's one of those things where you look back, you're like, oh, if you lived in Toronto, I wouldn't be friends with you. And they became
like a starter friend.
Yeah, starter friend.
This is it for now, yeah.
But they were like a bit possessive. And I'm like very independent. I break up with everybody. You know, I'm like, get out of here.
Right.
So then now
you just walk out mid-podcast. Like,
yeah, I was like, this is too
this
much.
Is not my vibe. Yeah.
This is.
I think we're done here.
Yeah. And so I
would totally
friends.
respect it if that happened. It'd be like a 6-minute episode. I would release it. It would be great.
Maybe I'll do it just we'll take this part out and I'll just leave. And it'll be like a good effect. But then I made some good friends. I feel like since doing stand-up, I like the people in stand-up. And then I've made like one good friend. Oh, no, I've made some good friends, but like they're not all from LA. But they live here.
But they're here now.
Yeah. So now I have. But it's like 8 years later. And whenever people move here, I'm always like, just be careful and don't feel like you have to be friends with the people you make friends with at first.
Yeah, just be have a little bit of a guard up, and but be nice and pleasant.
Yeah, yeah. Don't go out for fancy dinners with them. They're not worth the money.
Right, they're not going to contribute to the bill, and they'll order a lot of appetizers that you will not eat, and then and then they'll mooch off of you. Right.
Yeah, which I did have a friend that did that she would Airbnb her apartment and then asked to stay at mine. And I was like, sure, because I didn't know. But I look back, I was like, that was bullshit.
That's psychotic.
Isn't that crazy?
How did you find out?
Well, I knew, but she just kind of prefaced it as like she didn't have any money. And she would it was like I was doing her a favor. It was kind of like a friend that's like, this is what I think is valuable in a friendship. You really be there for the person. But then when I look back, when my boyfriend moved here, he was like, no. She's not staying with us. Fuck that. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, isn't that insane?
Yeah, like, it's almost like you're renting your place for free.
Yeah.
It's a pyramid scheme.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, I hope she's not listening to this. But if you are, you shouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah. You know? I get it if it's like, hey, you're roommates and you're like, hey, I'm just short on rent. I'm going to Airbnb my room for a couple nights and stay on the couch. Is that cool?
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah. Well, the first time she did it, I was like, okay, that's fine. And then her other friend was letting her, she took like 2 months and her other friend was letting her stay there. And then she was like, so could I stay with you like 5 days? And I was like, well, if your other friend's letting you, then I'm a dick if I say no. But I just didn't care. I was like, sure. And then after that, Matt, my boyfriend, was like, no, she's not doing this again. Like she did that a lot.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Yeah. Get a job. Yeah.
Tell me about Whoa Dad. Your podcast.
Yeah. So it is a podcast. So my dad is a musician. He's a drummer.
Oh, it's all coming together now.
Yes, I have daddy issues. And when I met my boyfriend, he was a drummer. So,
and your dad's a drummer?
My dad's a drummer. So it's like, oh my God, will you love me? And
no.
And so my dad and I became closer about like 10 years ago. And then I started a podcast where I teach him how to be a father for 2 reasons. One, there was like 2 comics in the scene that I figured like they had kids and they weren't in touch with the kids, and they were like complaining that when they call their kids that they have nothing to talk about, like the kids don't talk to them. And I was like, it put me back to when I was a kid. My dad would try and talk to me on the phone, but he wouldn't be like, he would just, how was your day? And it's like, I don't know how to form a conversation. I'm a child.
Yeah.
So I was explaining that to my friend, and I was like, you got to find what they like on YouTube. You got to dictate the conversation.
Right.
And then when I realized I was giving him this advice, I was like, damn, people need to know this. And then my dad also like doesn't know how to behave like a dad. Like he'll say inappropriate things. One of the things that he said was his way of complimenting me when I did stand up was like, no, you're really funny. Like, I don't know why you're so insecure. Like, you're funny and you look sexy on stage. Like, you got it all. And I was like, you can't call me sexy, Dad. He's like, well, I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it like that. I just mean
man.
you got like the look, you know, like people are going to be, but it's like his road lingo. And I was just like, he has no idea the stuff you can and can't say to a kid because he never had to censor himself. So then I did it. And he's really, really funny and quirky and eccentric and like so weird. Like people love him. So then I started a podcast with him, teaching him how to be a father.
That's amazing. It's cool that he bought into it.
He did, but he bought out right now. He's not doing it right now. He bought out. He got a refund.
That's funny.
Well, he basically did it. We did it before the pandemic.
That's such a good podcast arc, though.
I know. That's the thing. I'm like, it's a storyline.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So we did it.
You couldn't have planned it better.
I know. It causes me so much anxiety, but then I'm also like, as a listener, I feel like, yeah, it's a story. Like I want to.
I'm already hooked.
When's he coming back?
Yeah.
I know. And I'm like, now you all know how I feel.
Right.
So he did
we
it
should get
for
stickers.
a long
We're all Nikki.
We are all Nikki. So we did it before the pandemic. He came to LA and it was the most amount of time we ever spent together. It was like 8 days. And then during the pandemic, we still did it remotely. But then he just was having stuff like his girlfriend got sick and he was just really stressed out and I would like make him still do it. But he just wasn't like the same fun loving guy. He's like aliens and like the Republicans and
like QAnon-y?
Oh, he's obsessed with QAnon, but like he's not QAnon, but he hates QAnon people. So anything that was like on the news, that's all he would talk about. And then finally it got to the point he like bailed and didn't call me and I lost it and we didn't talk for like a month. So I cut the podcast. And then when we made up, he came back on for a birthday episode. And then after that, he was like, I didn't say I would keep doing it. And I was like, I think he's like kind of lost his mind.
Just coming back for the birthday is also a childhood thing again.
Exactly.
Only coming back for the birthday app?
Exactly. Only the birthday. And I was like thinking he was going to be around forever. And then I'd be like, Kate, can we do this date? And he's like, oh, I'm not still doing it. And I was like, you said you would. And so I'm easing back.
Do you do solo apps when he's not there?
I do guests.
Okay.
And like, I'm going to tell you, the guests and their daddy issues and what their dads did make my dad look like Danny Tanner. Like,
oh, wow.
These guys are crazy.
Yeah.
And some people have, and like a lot of people
that could be good for you too.
Yeah.
Like your side of it. Yeah.
So helpful. I'm like, oh God, my dad never did that. And listeners have said they actually are way more into these episodes right now because it's a different storyline. So I think like my dad, once we see each other again, because we're talking, but like once we see each other again, then I'll get him to do it. I think I need to like physically be like, hey, life is fun. Right now he's in like some weird place. And I am going to do a couple solo eps with like flashbacks because I think there's new listeners.
Yeah. And
I can't figure out how to get like podcasts to go from the first to the newest. So you know, when you like sign on.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Ordering.
So anyways, yeah.
That's also, it's a good way to, because you can't really work it out and explore it if you're doing you and him every time.
Exactly.
So having it pause and then having a guest is kind of like, it's like a director's commentary. Like you're actually making progress maybe in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I actually, because I do need to, there's a couple guests I want to have, but I was like, I think I need to do some like solo apps in between and be like, this is what is going on.
And then maybe like what is the multi-year arc of it? Like, is it just like how it unfolds? We don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like, because at the beginning it was like I was teaching him things, like I made him teach me about the birds and the bees. I made him like do an activity with me. I made him help me with my lines for an audition, like do homework with me. I made him we had to learn how to cook together, like all these things. And then there was so many like flubs along the way, but we talked out like all of our shit in the two perspectives. But the problem is that everything we talked about, he forgets. So like, I'll be like, we worked through that. And he'll be like, no, that still is. And I'm like, oh my God. It was like, it's like Groundhog Dad. Like he forgets
Groundhog
everything.
Dad is a great name that's a great name. You have so many great podcast names in here. Groundhog Dad.
I want to change it to Groundhog Dad if
That's
he comes
great.
back. Yeah.
Because it's Whoa Dad right now.
Yeah, because Whoa Dad was like, everything he would say, I'd be like
Like,
whoa,
whoa,
Dad.
Dad. Yeah.
Like, you can't, like, so much stuff he would
But
say.
also, Groundhog Dad seems like it's more about his memory issues.
Yeah,
than-
maybe the TV show I'll call Groundhog Dad.
Yeah, when you sell it. This is a
Yes.
Hollywood brain here thinking.
Yeah, we're just going, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Do not take this idea. But yeah,
Good.
I'll call it Groundhog Dad.
Groundhogdog.com.
Yeah, Groundhog Dad.
Does that even matter? Actually, probably better to get an Instagram handle than the
Yeah, that's true.
the .com.
Than the .com. So yeah, that's my podcast. It's a whirlwind.
It's a great idea.
Thank you. I think so too. I was like super stoked
It's very,
about it.
you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah. It's very
But you do that on
unique.
stage. And,
Yeah. And now I'm doing another podcast. My friends keep being like, you are too, like, you're really doing shit that I could never do. Like, not that I'm a saint, but I mean putting myself out there. Because now I'm doing one with Monterey where it's called Recovering Toxaholics. And it's about how, because we used to be very toxic and like our stories of being toxic and overcoming it.
Like you yourselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, like, the stories are bad. So my friends are just like, I don't know what
You're
you keep
sharing
doing.
stories about yourselves?
Yeah, about like
Okay.
how toxic we used to be and all the toxic things we did. And then
And did you know at the time they were toxic? Or this is
No.
just through learning?
learning,
Yeah.
I had no idea I was toxic. And then now, because when we would tell stories to each other, we'd be like, that's so fucked up.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, now we like know it's fucked up. And we've had guests on and like it's interesting. Yeah.
Are you going to run out of stories or is there like a deep well here?
I think there's a deep well. I think there's a deep well, like, because I forgot that I was so toxic with my parents' significant others. Like, I thought I was just toxic to like boyfriends, and I was like, oh no, that was pretty bad.
That's kind of a similar dynamic though.
Yeah.
Some transference there.
Yeah. Do you have daddy issues, or is your dad around?
He's around.
Oh.
I mean, don't we all have a little bit?
Yeah, I think that like a lot of people, I did have someone on who their dad was around, but like didn't pay attention to them. And I always ask people like, what would you rather? Your dad not be there, or your dad be there and then not be mentally there? And some people choose they'd rather their dad not be there. So it's very interesting.
That's such a hard question
I
and
know.
multi-layered. It's kind of like, it's a little butterfly effecty because you don't really know what it's really
Totally.
like when you remove something.
Yes,
and that's
yes.
such a big variable.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd rather be an orphan. I'm like, it's kind of like a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
you're adding in
There's
there.
more
and
that's
there's-
gonna happen. Yeah.
It's kind of like all things in life. When you take something away, something else fills the void.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I still want to know that. I'm like,
Yeah.
juice.
But those
Yeah.
are both great podcast ideas.
Thanks. Yeah. Just, being really vulnerable and
And how many episodes are you in with Monterey? Because this is a newer one.
yeah, we haven't put it out yet.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we have 10. I
And
wanted
it's
to batch.
called-
It's called Recovering Toxaholic.
Okay.
We have 10, and that's what I did with my dad too. Is I did 12, and then it was just easier to batch because now that I don't have 12 in the whole, like, having to come up with them with my dad's one, I'm late. Like I used to do them
Yeah.
every other week, and now I'm like,
It's so easy. Like, podcast is momentum, and like you miss one, and you're like, I'll just miss two.
Exactly.
I'll just miss three. What year is it?
Yeah, exactly. So we haven't released it yet, but yeah.
Yeah, well, you guys have a fun. Whenever I see you guys out, you have a good like conversational dynamic, and
Oh,
you seem like you're
thanks.
really good friends. So.
Yeah, we have the same. Yeah, it's easy, But I guess I just wanted. When I did my dad's one, I was like super stoked because I was like, this hasn't been done before, and it's like when I first came out with it, it was really helping people. Like I had people messaging me that I had no idea who they were, being like, this is helping me. Like
That's a
answer
sign you're
questions.
onto something too.
Yeah.
Like when you get that kind of feedback. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I love this. Thank you. I didn't know.
Yeah, it helped me like heal, and now my dad, and it's
Now I have a podcast with my dad.
Yeah, and I'm
and
like,
you're like, delete. That's not what this is for.
That's what I do. Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny. It's weird that there's room for so much content. There's like literally room for unlimited content.
I know. And that like if somebody famous or someone else does it, like I did since like 2014, I've been doing this thing, voicemail lip syncs, where I take voicemails and I lip sync what the people are probably doing. Because I got this really weird voicemail and I I just started doing it because I was like, what the hell? And I do a lot with my dad. And then in 2016, Sarah Cooper did Trump's, and I had already done Trump. I had already done a voicemail of him doing the grab by pussy, and I was heartbroken. Like I was like numb when it happened, and I was like, I've been doing this. I did that. And I dressed up as him. And it's so upsetting when something like that happens.
Yeah. It's like you both come up with an idea and like one goes viral.
Yeah. And hers is like comes out years later. And I was just like, or no, it wasn't even 2016. It was 2020. I think she came out, and it was just heartbreaking. But I'm still doing it, but I do it differently. But it was, when you have an idea and there's so much.
And you put so much time into it.
Oh,
and it's
my
like
God.
So, it's a lot of motion to create something because it is it's art, it's some sort of creation. And then you're like, oh, my art is, it's like not being, like I did this with a New Yorker cartoon. I wrote a New Yorker caption and then I looked at it and the exact caption was in the New Yorker with someone else's name.
No.
And I was like, okay, maybe we wrote like to the comma exact.
No.
Yes. And then I emailed them. I was like, what's the deal? Like, how do you select between two people? It was the exact, I never heard back from them. Like,
and you sent it to the New Yorker and they did it with somebody else's name?
But I mean, it could have been my,
No, there's no way. I didn't know you sent it to the New Yorker.
I sent it in.
No, they fucked you.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. To the comma? I thought you just like wrote it and had posted it somewhere.
I sent it in.
Fuck that. They took it.
Yeah?
That's crazy. Absolutely. And then they didn't write you back when you said, what's the deal?
Yeah, I went to like 3 different like customer service things and I just gave up and canceled my subscription.
No.
Yeah.
They fucked you. They definitely took it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It could be like anybody that's like an assistant that's like reading that and is like, oh, this is a good one. Oh, man, you got to blast them.
You don't get anything for it. You just get your name like so from...
Yeah, but you want your name. We all want our name out
Yeah,
there.
it'd be cool. It's like something you do. And then, but yeah, I was kind of like annoyed by stuff. But, I do think there's also a part of me that's like realistic that like, two people can think of the same caption. It has to be possible.
But by the comma, I don't think so. And to be posted by the New Yorker who you sent it to.
It's too much.
It's way too much. No way. That's your Canadian side.
It is. I was just gonna say that. That's my Canadian side, just walking it back.
I'm like, not by the comma. If honestly, if you posted it on Instagram and they did it, I'd be like,
I did post it on Instagram after and just said, hey, I did this one just to be like, whatever.
Whoa, no, they definitely, you got fucked.
That's my Canadianness.
That's your Canadian. You're like, I could be, the same paper, the same magazine. Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
No,
well, it's in the past.
It's in the past, but we know now.
We know now. All the listeners know. Nikki knows.
Yeah, I know.
And she called me out on my Canadianness.
Yeah, and if I meet anybody at the New Yorker, I'll let them know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That some caption from 2020.
Yeah. Was stolen. Yeah, exactly.
You heard it here first.
You could have been famous by that caption.
I doubt it. I'm sure the guy who wrote it is not famous.
Okay.
He's still at his job.
You should look him up.
Oh, look up the name?
Yes.
That'd be funny. And then email him?
Yes.
2 years later?
Yes.
This is how you get fired up for podcasts. We're going to address this thing that happened.
This is going to happen.
I need a co-host, and we're going to address captions that are stolen.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Stolen words with Nikki Bon and Monterey.
Yeah. Oh, you want to take our words, huh?
Yeah. You want to take our voicemails. And you shot a special with, which one was it? Comedy Cube.
Yeah, I don't know if...
You want to talk about it?
Well, I just don't know if I call it a special. Like, I definitely wouldn't call it I know they call it a special.
Right.
Because I'm not burning the material and it's on YouTube. And
you shot content with Comedy Cube.
I shot content with Comedy Cube.
Rebranding.
Yes.
Honestly, like, I think the way content is now, like if you have a great bit and you captured it and you posted it on Instagram, it doesn't mean you can't still do it.
Right. Yeah. Well, when I did it, a lot of comics, okay, by that I mean like 3, were like, oh, no, I wouldn't do that. Like, you're going to have to burn your material and that company is woo. And I was like, no, I got some good clips out of it and it helps me.
It looks crisp.
Yeah. It's, you know, I actually had COVID when I shot it. When I shot that, I had COVID and I didn't know. And my mom was in the hospital. Like, she had just got rushed to the hospital that morning and I still had to go and shoot it. And
is
like,
the end of the story the entire audience is dead?
the end of the story is everyone else got COVID and died.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So you literally burned the material.
Yeah, I burned.
You're like,
yeah.
You guys have seen these jokes and that's going to be the last thing you ever see.
Yeah, congratulations. Cough. Yeah.
Well, how'd you find out that you had it there? That's so awkward. That's got to be awkward to be like, I left my special. I had COVID there on stage.
It was so awkward. And I had
killed,
to tell
literally.
them. I killed a few old people that were there. I didn't feel well. And then the next morning, I did a test and it was positive. Yeah, because, and I was like, oh, I definitely had it yesterday because I had felt the same, but a little bit worse, you know. And that was like Delta. That was the bad COVID.
Delta was bad?
Oh my God, the worst. I thought I was going to die.
Really?
Yeah, I called the doctor 3 times. And I was
in Canada?
Yeah, in Canada. Hey, is this free? They're like, no, it's long distance.
Yeah.
And they were like, because I'm a hypochondriac and I have asthma. So like I called and I was like, hey, because I started like panicking and I was like, I'm not breathing and I don't know what to do. And they were like, okay, well, if it gets, like I had like the heart monitor thing and the oxygen
like
test.
a little clip?
Oh my God, I was doing that every 10 minutes.
You had that in your home?
I bought one.
You are a hypochondriac.
Big time. I spent.
What is it hooked up to? Your iPhone?
It's just a battery operating.
Okay.
On your finger.
Just all these wires and USB ports.
I'm just like, I was freaking out, and the doctor was like, "Okay, well, if it gets below a certain number," and it was actually kind of low, but I think it was low because I was hyperventilating. And then he was like,
"Do you have a paper bag?"
No, but I used to when I was a kid. Because I used to hyperventilate.
What does the bag do? I feel like it's just TV.
Well, for me, it was mind over matter. It helps regulate your breathing. So when I was a kid, I didn't know they were panic attacks, but I would start thinking that I couldn't breathe. Because one day I was driving with my mom and I was like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And then I was like, we called 911 and because we're in Canada, every time I felt that way, I'd be like, call 911. Yeah. It's free.
You mean 912 in Canada?
912.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was like.
I've been calling for you.
What?
You're freaking out.
Was that fake? And so then I would always have these breathing problems, but they were just panic attacks. I know that now that I'm older. And so I would go to school and they would give me a paper bag because my therapist, I had one when I was 7, was like, take a paper bag to school and if you have a breathing attack, it will help. It will fix it. It's 7. Whoa. And then and so for the paper bag for me, it made me think, oh, if I have a breathing attack, I'll live. If I have, it was a placebo.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was just me hyperventilating and I was like, you know, but yeah, I didn't know.
Is it like less oxygen? You're breathing in carbon monoxide?
I think it's.
You're just killing brain cells?
Yeah.
And then until you're fine, you're like,
I don't even know, but it does. It just calms you. I think it gives you oxygen. I don't even know.
Did you ever hyperventilate, like, and then
pop it? No, but I was obsessed with the paper bag. It had to be everywhere I went. If I didn't have the paper bag, I would get scared because I'd be like, oh my God, what if a breathing attack happens and the paper bag's not here?
Yeah.
And then one day, a girl who was like a bully, she was a friend of mine, but a bully, I guess I dropped the paper bag and she took it and I didn't know. And she ripped it up and wrote a note on it and passed me the note. And I realized it was the paper bag. And I was like, oh my God, my paper bag's gone. And I had to go to the principal's office because I was like, I can't breathe because I didn't have the paper bag.
What did she write on it?
Just like bullshit about.
Gotcha, bitch.
Yeah, she definitely knew. Like she was evil. Like
That's
she definitely
cruel.
knew. I know.
Kids are mean.
Kids are so mean. Like I realize I think all
That's
my
something from a movie, the Nikki movie, whatever you're writing, the sliding the paper bag.
And then looking down and my backpack's
like,
open.
I know what you did last summer. I mean, wrong movie. I know you're going to die.
Yeah. I know you can't breathe without this.
Yeah.
Saka. Yeah.
Choke on this.
Yeah. And then I just pass out.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing. I was in the principal's office all the time with my paper bag. It was really embarrassing.
Did you write on it, or was it always clean?
Always clean, and I folded it up. But then after like 3 days, it would get holes because it was folded and used. So then I had to replace the paper bag.
And you must have had a stash at home?
Oh,
or was it like one for your lunch, one for your...
I had a lot. Yeah, I definitely had a stash. Did
you ever empty out your lunch stuff onto the counter and like use the lunch bag?
I didn't even use the paper bag as my lunch bag. I used a lunch box, and then I had a stack of paper bags for my safety. I was like, Mom, how did you deal with this? She's like, don't even ask.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, you're fucking nuts. One day I had so much anxiety and worry and a hypochondriac that my pants were pulled up high, and I looked down and I couldn't see my belly button, and I went, Mom, screaming into the kitchen, being like, my belly button's gone. My belly button's gone.
Like in the Matrix when Neo loses his mouth.
Yeah. And then she's like, pull your pants down a bit. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, man.
Wow. But your mom seems like she was pretty calming effect on you.
Yes. My mom and my grandma would get worried. And I think that's what propelled it. Like, my mom and grandma were big worriers. My grandma was like, don't walk with your hands in your pants, in your pockets. If you trip on the street, you'll break your neck. Don't drink out of a can, you'll get locked
That's
up.
good kid advice, though, because kids get absent-minded, and they do stuff like that.
That's true. That is true. But then my mom and grandma were very like, what if? So then I was like, what if?
Yeah.
But I think it's also because my mom was like chill, like she'd be like, it's fine. But I think it's because I saw a plane crash when I was a kid and I was in a bank robbery. So I was like, death happens.
Hold up. You saw a plane crash?
Yeah.
Like a jetliner or like a small plane?
No, a bomber.
A what?
A bomber. Like I was at the air show. It was like a huge bomber. And
you have a way of creating a lot of excitement in the conversation, because like it's like airplane. Was it a big one? No, it was a bomber. A bomb? No, it was a bomber. You're leaving the audience on edge here. Okay, so there's a bomber, because Bombardier is like a Canadian company. Is it like one of those like small?
It was a German bomber.
A German bomber.
Yeah, like a Nimrod, like a big army plane with two propellers. And I actually I know this because on July 4th. A huge bomber that looked exactly like it came over top so low, and I froze and I was going, no, and I didn't even know I was doing it. And my friend was like, are you okay? And I was like going, no, like I had like PTSD. And then I walked over to my best friend from grade 3. I went, Alexa, and she goes, shut up. And I was like, oh my God. So it was a huge bomber. It was at the air show
in Canada,
Toronto. Yeah. And it came over top, and I was on Lake Ontario in one of the boats, and because my mom worked at a radio station, so we always got to go.
This is all your mom's a radio station. You're good on the mic on podcasting.
Yeah. My dad's a drummer. My grandparents were in the circus. Yeah, I'm just like full on.
This is good. All right, so bomber.
You're like, so they came over top, and I saw, and it was letting out sparks, and I love fireworks, and I was like, oh my God, there's fireworks. And then it came lower and lower and lower, and then it just crashed in front of us.
Into the ground?
Into the water, and exploded. And then like...
The people ducking and like...
It was like, you just froze. You're like, this actually can't be happening.
Yeah.
It's going lower, and it's like low at first, and you're like, fuck, that's very low.
Yeah.
But then as it keeps going and it gets closer to the water, like you don't even realize it's going to crash until it hits the water, because you just think maybe and hope maybe it's doing a trick.
Until that exact moment
it blows up, because you think maybe it's going to go down, scoop up water. I don't know. And then it exploded.
It turns into a water party.
Yeah.
Douses everyone with water.
Yeah. We're like, and then pieces of the plane were like floating by. It's on YouTube, actually.
Are you in it?
The boats are, yeah.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen it until like a few years ago, because I didn't know it was on YouTube. And seeing...
Did you watch it?
Yeah. It's crazy.
That must have been traumatizing to rewatch.
It was. And it's weird because the way I remember it, it happened so much slower than what it looked like.
It's just a puff of smoke.
It's just like...
Yeah.
Where in my mind, it was like slow.
Well, time slows down, right?
Yeah.
Like bullet time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy.
It's the second Matrix reference today. Wow. That's insane.
Yeah. So I think I blame it on that,
On the air show?
Yeah.
Air shows are always like problematic. There's always something like,
right?
People kind of go there for being like, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen? Because then there was a crash. I think like 2 snowbirds crashed into each other like 4 years later, I believe. Yeah. Air shows, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your mom was a radio station, like a DJ rock?
No.
Station?
She sold advertising at the radio station. But sometimes
not on air.
Not on air. But she was on air for a little bit for like a game show. She was like the voice of a game show. Yeah.
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 I mean, it's close to it.
It's close enough. She was in entertainment.
In the
that
biz.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a child of show business. The nepotism is real.
Except haven't gone very far, but working on it.
It got you out of Ontario.
Oops. Yeah, I guess so. My dad being American did. My mom
So you don't have to do any of that stuff?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, nepotism is real.
Nepotism, but my mom in radio didn't do anything. And then my dad and his connections haven't done a single thing.
Right, but giving you content and a green card?
Yes.
Come on.
Yes, okay.
That's something.
Okay, I don't know if I call it nepotism, but yeah sure. Yeah.
Are you friends with like the whole Toronto crew of comedians that are here? Like
No.
DJ and Eddie and Steph Tolev? And do you know them from there or no?
Because I didn't do stand-up in Toronto.
Okay.
I did it when I moved out here.
Gotcha.
Are you friends with
Same.
them?
I'm friends with them here now just because like you and I are Canadian and it start to be like commonality, but like I met them all here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I don't really know like who's in a crew or like who's friends with who. Because it seems like they're kind of all separate.
I mean, I just named, there's really like a few from Toronto, a few from Vancouver, and then like more from Toronto because it's a bigger city, and like that's it. And I'm sure there's other like different generations above me and below me that I just don't know.
Yeah.
But it is like, there's not that many Canadian comedians. It's probably like 20. Like
yeah,
of
I
our
guess
group,
so.
30?
I guess.
Maybe 30 even sounds too high.
It does sound too high. Yeah, definitely not 30. I don't think so. Maybe 20.
20 sounds about right.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
But that's a big guess.
Totally.
I don't really know.
So what are your goals for this year? You have so much going on. Like you have a couple pods, you're doing stuff, you're doing comedy, you're writing. Like what's the next goal for this year?
I'm going to be honest. Like I don't love goals.
Okay.
Goals freak me out. But I know that I need to have them. I don't like goals because if you have a goal and you don't meet it, nothing makes you feel worse. I mean, somebody cheating on you or your parent dying, sure. But like goals freak me out. I should have more goals. I like know what I want. Like I would like to be on tour. I'd like to be like featuring. And I would like to, I don't know, I don't like goals.
Tour, but that's something I'm working on is like doing more headlining stuff outside of the city. And like you really just got to like almost open up your laptop and just start writing out, all right, here's something I could do. And then like it sucks. It's like being an administrator, but you have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I do headline a lot out of the city, like in San Luis Obispo and San Diego. I do all that, but I would like to be like
on the road with like a national headliner type
getting
vibe.
Paid.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like, I would love, like a huge goal was for my podcast to like be big and then be able to like tour with that.
Yeah.
But that hasn't happened yet. But
these are new.
That goal was in 2020 and it's 2022. See, I don't like goals.
Hey, listen. But the goals are there because even if you hit half or you adjust along the way, and look, you have one pod, you're starting another pod, like it's still part of it.
Yeah. It would
Your
be
socials
sick.
are doing great.
TikTok's fun, yeah. It'd be sick if Monterey and
sick.
It'd be
That's
sick.
a Canadian.
Do people not say that here?
No.
Oh, interesting. It's funny because I'll like write people being like sick.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to do that, to like go on tour with her doing the podcast. But do you have big goals?
I'm trying to do more headlining stuff. Like I have about an hour of material and I don't run it enough. I run it in small chunks around the town, and I just like, time is moving. So I just got to start, I'm making a list of all the clubs and like small venues outside of LA, and I just want to start doing them and planning them and making it happen so I can record some sort of album.
Cool.
And mix it myself, obviously.
Mix it yourself. Exactly. Yeah.
Because we have such an advantage as Canadians with Sirius.
We do? I didn't know this. What is our advantage?
We get played. There's a certain section of plays for Sirius Radio that's only for Canadians.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't
Every
know that.
Canadian comedian lives off that money.
No.
Yes.
And does it have a certain requirement for the type of stuff you put on? Like, is it like clean?
Cleaners always gets more plays, but it doesn't have to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many minutes?
Well, it's just like a radio station.
I know, but how many minutes do they play of the comedian? Like 10 or 15?
They'll play it like one track, like one bit. So sometimes it varies. It's 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
How do you submit to that?
Usually the record label you have the album released on, like pitches it for it, then it goes into rotation. And then they have like playlists like weed jokes, and then like if you have a weed joke, it'll go into that kind of like playlist. And
Damn. Whoa.
And it's big money.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
And you don't like goals. Album is coming. Nikki Bond.
I was like, can I just take the audio from that special and send it to them?
Absolutely. Make an album, release it, chop it up.
But then when you release it, do you have to burn the material?
I mean, that's on you. That's a creative choice.
Oh, okay, cool.
You know?
Yeah. So do you just give career advice on this podcast? That's what seems is happening?
I don't give career advice, but we talk about goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
And because I've had like the head of Sirius Pandora on the podcast, and so just sharing stuff and things I know. Other Canadians taught me this. I didn't know this. They're like, hey, I this is how, and they showed me all the stuff. This is how much money I make. This is how I do it. I'm like, oh, that's dope.
No way.
So,
really?
we got to share the love. And there was do you remember a couple years ago, they were going to get rid of this Canadian stuff off of Sirius.
Right.
And there was like protests and people were mad at Howie Mandel and like, do you remember that? Like,
yes, I do
right
remember
before
that.
the pandemic.
Yes. Yeah, and then it also had to do with JFL as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it was JFL bought the station and they were going to get rid of the Canada. So I don't know the details, but I remember everyone being pissed. And me, like you, I started comedy here, not there. So I don't have this legacy of even understanding what's going on up there.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, this is why we're mad, blah, 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 blah. The money here,
Wow, damn. That's crazy. And then, wow, okay. Releasing so you're going to do an hour, you're going to do an album. And then send it to Sirius. But do you need like a record
album, release it. I'll probably shoot video at the same time just because why not? And at least you'll have clipping stuff from it.
Yeah.
Because to like just record the audio is just really
weird.
It's just 10 years ago. Like put up a couple cameras.
Yeah.
We can get great clips from an iPhone that like do well. So if you're not putting up a couple cams, and obviously I have cameras from the podcast. So.
And then do you, it's probably all boring for them, but then do you, like, do you have to have a record label, or do you just put it up and hope?
You can put it out yourself, but if you have a record label, you give up some of the income, but they do help you kind of like get placements, get pitching, get press. So it's like it's a trade-off. For some people, you need it. Some people, you don't.
Interesting.
It depends. I mean, you're kind of in the music biz. You got an engineer boyfriend. I'm sure he knows all these.
Couple labels.
I mean, there's a few comedy labels. You could always do it yourself.
Yeah.
And then submit.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
But having a label is always powerful too.
Yeah.
It's pros and cons, Yeah.
It's
just like doing a special with somebody. You could sell it to them and that you get a lot more views, or you own it, but you own it. And you're like, all right, what's the trade-off there?
Yes.
And what stage of my career are you in?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like some.
Why don't we both do that? Let's do a joint goal of Canadian album within the year.
Okay.
Deal?
Okay.
Okay. Pressure.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Submit to it.
Okay, I'll
submit.
submit.
Shake on it.
Okay, I'll submit to it.
All right.
Okay,
You're
cool.
so nervous, and I love it. Do you want a paper bag?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well, Nikki, this has been so fun. I'm really glad you came over here and got to know you better.
Thanks for having me.
I think you're so funny. I loved when you were on the Kibbutz Room show and you just dominated with your confidence that you didn't apparently know about. But
I didn't know. That was a crazy.
It was a wild show.
I was like, I didn't know that teenagers could affect me still.
Still.
Yeah.
They have this like aloofness. Like they can really just like the dismissiveness.
Oh, too much.
Yeah, it's just like
yeah, and then they think they know everything.
Yeah.
If I had been, I'm like, I want to do it again and be mentally prepared to take them down.
Yeah, they're gone. They don't come anymore.
They don't come.
No.
Okay.
They came for a few weeks in a row. I'm like, do we have to stop doing the show? Like,
because they were so bad.
Yeah.
They were so. The thing I didn't like about them was that
to set the stage, basically a group of teenagers came into this free comedy show we do every Monday at the Kibitz Room, and they were pleasant, but they would just kind of sit and stare. It felt like high school detention.
Yeah, and they would heckle in a way that they wanted to make. Some of them, not all of them, a couple of them wanted to take the people on stage down. It was like a bully in high school, the cool guy who like makes fun of the teacher.
They wanted to make fun of you a little bit, but in a way that wasn't funny.
Yeah.
But it wasn't mean necessarily, but it just was strange.
Yeah, like and condescending, like, keep going. We're here to watch you.
Yeah, that's what they were doing. Yeah. You really remember.
Oh, yes, because it triggered my like childhood stuff. Like that's a huge thing. And I was just like, oh, you guys. Yeah.
Well, because when I watched, I thought you handled it so good. I was like, oh, okay, that's how you
really?
You yeah.
Oh my God.
Because you just plowed right over them.
I was like sweating. I was
You're journaling about it later.
That's when I needed my paper bag. I was like, oh, but now I like to teach those kinds of people lessons, but I wasn't equipped. And I think I was hungover that day too. So I was like, here we go. But I'm glad that I had the confidence because I got off stage being like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, if anything, your life has taught you to suppress all the feelings and the trauma and plow through on stage.
Plow through on stage like that bomber plowed through to the water.
Great callback. Tell people where to find you, your socials.
I'm on Instagram at Nikki Bon, NIKKIBON. Should I look here? TikTok, same. And YouTube, same. And that's it, I think.
That's it.
That's it.
Good night.
Thank you.